Welcome, everyone, to episode 45 of the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor, and with me is a guy that I first met a couple years ago. You know, kind of through, I believe it was at Bombshells Tavern in Orlando. I was going to see Tantric at the time, and I don't remember all the circumstances. I remember this guy was there, and he got to talking about his band, and I had kind of found out about it because the bass player at the time was Zach Sandler, who I've had on the show here and I was a fan with, and who has since become a pretty good friend of mine. He's been on the show a couple times. The episode I did with him was one of my higher rated, or I'd say higher viewed podcasts that I put out since I've been doing this, and I've been doing the show about 2 years now. So he was telling me about this band called Embrace the Envy. I'd gotten to meet a few of the guys in the band, and I had went to go see them at the first show they did in Orlando. I forget. I think it was at Will's Pub, or it was something like that. It was a smaller room in downtown Orlando, and I remember kind of keeping in touch with them over the years. Since then, Zach has gone on. He's playing in Falling in Reverse now, but the band that was known as Embrace the Envy is now called Devil's Envy, and they've kind of shuffled the lineup a little bit. They've had another former Black Tide guy in now. Austin Diaz is on guitar, which is kind of weird that you get that little connection in there, but that's kind of cool. And their guitar player is my guest today. He's also now singing lead for them. This guy has a really interesting resume. Like, he's done a lot of work as a traveling, I should say, a touring tech for many famous bands, and he's also an accomplished musician himself. He's also an Army veteran, which is really cool that he served our country, and now he's doing this. So please welcome to the Phoenix Report, Angel Graves.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Not much, man. I was trying to retrace our steps a little bit as to exactly how you and I met. I think it was at that Tantric show.
I think it was, and then we had that show at the Peacock Room. I think it was our very first
that was
show.
That was the name of it. That was the first show you guys did as Embrace the Envy, and
right.
I think there was like a mutual friend. I think this guy Miguel, who I met a while back. Kind of lost touch with him, but like he was like introducing me to you guys and to Zach, right. And so, it was just one of those things that just kind of happened, and I saw you guys. I was impressed with the band, but I know that you've gone through a few different guys, and now Devil's Envy is a whole new thing where you've kind of taken over the lead vocal spot in addition to playing guitar.
Right. Yeah, it's been more of like a self-discovery of like what kind of sound we wanted to go for. Back when we were called Embrace the Envy, it was a little more like metal, more like Iron Maiden-esque type vibe. But since then, it was really hard to really kind of develop to where I wanted to go musically with it. So, having been picked up for all like the touring jobs and stuff, it kind of just fell through. And, everyone else kind of did their own thing. Zach went off with Falling in Reverse. I started tour managing and running a front of house sound and producing, doing audio engineering, that kind of thing. And then Sean runs his family's business. So we all kind of got tied in doing, everything as we needed to. And then, Ryan, he's been a great, person to work with, as a songwriter. And, we had to like kind of part ways. So I kind of just redeveloped everything and kind of give it its own spin, to where now it's like more like it's a little more theatrical, and, we're incorporating more like comic book themed, art, to kind of represent the music behind it, or vice versa. The music could kind of also represent the artwork as well, the story behind it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because are you the one doing the artwork for a lot of this?
Yeah, which is why it's like there's been like delays with a lot of the releases, and well, not even delays, but more so like I can't really give out specific release dates because of our schedules, and since I'm doing it all essentially myself with the help of my good friend Sean. He helps me with a lot of the songwriting. And then we have other people as well, other entities that help us, that are in other bands, and also have done work in other aspects of the industry. But yeah, the comic book artwork I'm working on myself. I do a lot of the drawing, the sketch work, the character designs, stories, and it takes time, with a great amount of help with my good friend Gary Duffner. He's a comic book illustrator, and he is doing something similar with his band called Vetica. And he and I got to work together. I started writing music for his project, and he started coloring in the artwork for us. It's a sweet barter system we have going, but he's a really talented comic illustrator. He's the one that brings all the artwork to life. Add the color and all the high definition detailed artwork that you see on it.
That's so cool, man. I'm a huge fan of comic books and superheroes and stuff like that. And like I've like talked with the guys in my band about doing stuff like that, having these other little like creative outlets for it. I mean, I can't draw or anything like that, so it's like I was always envious. I mean, and we would talk about it a lot, but obviously we're all busy. We don't have time to do it. But like you're really doing it, man. Like that's really cool stuff. Like to be able to like incorporate that into into part of your brand, really, and part of like your identity. I just think that's a cool thing, man. Like, there aren't a lot of bands that do that. I think like Kiss was one of the first bands to do it, but like, you don't really have too many bands who have that like that, or who are as like visually exciting where they could get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough thing to do. Like, there are plenty of bands out there that say, oh yeah, we're doing the comic book thing. I think Starset is doing something like that. Mm-hmm. September Morning did something like that. And I remember talking about this years ago, like even before we even thought of the name Embrace the Envy. It's like, that was my initial plan, to just start a comic book series that was just strictly online. And then while you're scrolling through reading the comics and stories, you would hear the music, like that would represent that spot or that part of the story or whatever you would be reading. And it kind of developed into now, since it was so expensive to find someone to even like do that, I decided, you know what, I already know how to draw. I've been drawing since I was a kid. Maybe if I could just do all the designs, the character designs, at least someday I could find someone that could help design backgrounds and even illustrate it. And then sure enough, Gary found me online, and he was talking about like doing something like this, but he needed the music. He was doing the same thing but backwards, and he needed the music. But I think mine was more to do like a live thing as well, like to perform live and have like this whole stage set up, and our identities were to be like our alter egos, like superheroes, like, or anti-heroes, like Batman, or or the Ninja
larger than life characters, basically.
Right, yeah. And so like these characters are set out to have like these powers they were from other planets or from other entities. Like the main character is based off of like his father was a devil and his mom is an angel, and so they had him. And this is basically what character I represent, or the story that I based it off of.
Yeah.
And so like there are these anti-heroes, kind of, like vigilantes. So it's kind of a blend of like the Ninja Turtles and Devil May Cry is a favorite video game of mine, and Batman, basically. Like they're not really masked, but they hide in the shadows, and where it's kind of like how we feel with our music. Like we've been hiding in the shadows, and we'll release here and there every now and then, our music or even our artwork with no notice. It's just like, here it is. And I kind of like working like that, you know, and
Hmm.
it keeps things pretty mysterious. And I like to have um, that vibe around the music, the band, the brand, if you will, you know,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
give it a
absolutely.
mysterious vibe and not like, I love how other bands, they interact with the fans, and then
Hmm.
they show a lot of videos of their set of themselves, and they're, you know, in private, you know, I'm different, you know, we're all about like, we should have some kind of exclusivity for like the real fans. Like we could let them into the Devil Dove cave, if you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let them into the cave, not just anyone. And, you know, like if fans want to see us, they'll see us live. You know, if we post something cool, but like we're not always going to be there and show them behind the scenes whenever we feel like it. Cause I feel
Right.
like it just spoils, like, it takes away all of the excitement, the production value of like what we've been working on for so long. Like
There's a little bit of mystique there you kind of want to create.
right. And yeah, and I agree. And like I said, not knocking any of the other bands that do it differently and they have this camaraderie and family vibe with their fans. That's awesome, you know, but you know, at the same time, you know, I have to do what feels right for me and for us as a group. You know, that might feel right for them, for other bands to do that way, but for us, it feels right to be a little more secretive and, you know, and do things in private and not always show them what we're doing in the studio or, you know, like what we do in our daily lives. You know, we have our personal profiles for that, you know, but, as far as like the band goes, it's more of, you know, entertainment thing first and foremost, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get the ball rolling on the comic book thing because that was like primarily the main thing we were set off with. But it's much easier to build the momentum as a live band and gain our fans that way too, and kind of bring them into the comic book world. And you know, hopefully we'll get to bring the fans of the comic book world into the music world, you know, and kind of just cross fan bases. And you know, we do have a tour set up, but it's a comic book tour. Like basically, we'll visit every comic book store in town, or at least in Central Florida, and kind of set up like little meet and greets and where we could like give out posters and our first issue comic book published. You know, like once we publish it and everything, we hope to set that out and carry that out.
It's
Finally.
exciting stuff, man. Like you've got like a really good like sort of multi-tiered attack, and like to your point earlier about it, the exclusivity being there. It's always a fine line to walk, I think, because now it's not like like back in the '70s, like Led Zeppelin was famous for like not wanting to do interviews
Right.
because like they kind of wanted to preserve that mystique of that band, and they were able to get away with it. They were big enough to do that.
Right.
Nowadays it's like you can't necessarily be fully reclusive. Like
Right.
you do have to connect with your fans on a certain grassroots level. And I think a lot of bands, and certainly I've fallen into this, myself, where it's like you want to try and like have help people kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit. But
Yeah.
but there is something to be said for having that, for finding ways to put yourselves out there, but also like to build a certain mystique around it, or a certain aura around what you guys do, for lack of a better term. So I think that's a really real thin line to walk, but I feel like this is a really smart way to do it.
Right. And then yeah, and it's like, and I'm not like, we're not the only ones doing it this way too, you know, and you know, and I thank you for like you know, recognizing at least our attempt, our efforts doing something like this. It's not easy, but you know, at the time, you know, when we started this, we were like confused, like why is it that, you know, no one's really reaching out and really digging the music? And it does take a lot of financial means
Yeah.
and a lot of time to really push something, even if, you know, like if we're our own worst critics, and sometimes we have to break away from that and just put it out there. Especially me, like I'm so critical of my own work. I'm like, okay, certain people are going to think it sucks. I don't really want to put it out there too much. And so I kind of have to stop and like, you know what? The more I see it, the more chances of we're going to find the right fans, the right people that are into this kind of thing, that they pick up on the vibe from just looking at the name alone. And so, that's where we're at right now. Is like trying to push it as much as we can with the means that we have, and being thankful for those that actually do like share things with us and tell us, we get messages sometimes on Instagram that tell us, like, oh, the music is awesome, and it speaks volumes, like it says exactly how I feel. And that's, like the very little that we do get, we're very appreciative of, and people like that find the time to reach out and connect is, it's way more than just empty likes and, or just a quick share and don't really say anything about it. And, people that actually reach out to us, on a daily basis is motivating enough, for us to keep wanting to push it out there and find others like them,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and what you guys are doing is it's a brilliant idea, and no pun intended, I'm a little envious. It's like I wish I was able to draw, and I wish I had I wish we had the commitment to it to really spend the time and money into making it happen. So I mean, obviously there's a reason why it's happening for you guys, because you guys are making it work, and I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's the trick is it's not really like a secret or anything. It's just basically posting something at least every day and just keeping your fans or even potential fans that you want to gain and notice that you are active, that you are posting something. And it's really difficult because there are times I'm like, in a perfect world, like, yeah, you should schedule this and post this like every week. In a perfect world, yeah, that'd be awesome. But none of us are getting paid for this.
Yeah.
And we have our day jobs. I have to work at a studio all day, and so, and then my other teammates, they have to work their regular jobs, and it's really hard to find the time to set out 2-3 days to do videos or, or even work on new music and all this stuff. So, it definitely takes some extra time, some effort, a little bit of sacrifice here and there. But it's nothing more than just, even if it's like a picture, a meme or something, just get your fans engaged in it. So when you do post something that's meaningful, like you have new music out, they're already used to seeing posts every day. So they see like, oh, they post music or they posted a video, and it helps defeat the algorithms that social media has like right now. It's basically, it's weird. It's basically creating people that are very, very active. Like if you don't post anything and maybe once a week, hardly anyone's going to see it. And the reason is because so many people already at this height of social media have liked and followed so many band pages that it's filtering out everything. So the ones that are constantly posting are going to end up in front of their faces. So I think that's the only trick, like whether it's a post here and there, whether you have a like now, later, the more you do it, like the more it'll grow. And, at first I didn't know this and I was like frustrated. I felt like, well, we suck this bad, like, so the trick is just sharing, and
that's great. That's great advice. Is there like a particular thing that, because you mentioned posting every day, which I think is a smart strategy. It's like, in terms of what you're posting every day, is it mainly like status updates or like, different, things you're sharing, or could it be anything?
I noticed we get more hits on just pictures and videos. So, whether it's a short clip, anything, it could be a meme that you shared from somewhere else. If you notice other pages, they'll do this too. And like I said, it's no big secret. Everybody knows this. It's a matter of carrying it out. pictures, very good visuals. You know, everybody likes to be entertained, and they want to see something either funny or cool looking or captivating to the eye. You know, like you just without giving out too much. You know, it's plan on what your band is all about, and then just post things that kind of ties into what your band's vibe is. If I'm not like confusing anyone out there.
No, I totally understand. Yeah, no, this is all good stuff. I mean, it's great advice for anyone, really. So it's great. Tell me about some of the guys in the band. I mentioned that Austin Diaz was part of it. And is there 4 of you guys? Like, who else is in the band with you?
So it's mainly just Sean and I, like, as the bare backbone of like everything, and Austin wanted to come aboard to perform, and then we told him, like, look, the door's open, for creativity. Like, if you have a song you're working on, if you want to help with ideas, by all means. Jeff is still our good friend. He had to part ways because he's running other businesses as well. We did have some kind of like creative differences, but he wanted to pursue other things. So
Jeff was your former guitar player?
Bass player, right. And he would do some of the scream vocals. He was great at it. Mm-hmm. He actually helped us write some of the music on the new stuff that's going to be releasing soon. But yeah, like, Austin's a great guitar player. He's been awesome at learning all the stuff. It's like it was so easy because we have very similar styles, and then I've always been a fan of his old band, and mm-hmm. So he's actually very enthused about like this whole thing. Like, he's excited about it, and he's been sending up like ideas, and we've been collaborating a lot on like newer stuff too.
Yeah. He certainly has that experience factor.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And Sean is your drummer?
Right. Yes.
Okay. And who's on bass?
Right now we have a fill-in, but as of now, I think we're just gonna keep the doors closed as far as like permanency goes. Seeing that most rock bands these days, especially like look at the bigger ones, is there's less instrumentalists and more of just putting on a show. Like, I think that's their whole thing. The way technology is these days, we're very confident that we can, pull this off with just 3 of us. And, we'll have our fill-in guys, where we need to, and just keep it at that, and it keeps everything smooth, and there's less, honestly, there's less conflict with just having just 2 main people kind of guide everything, since we know what we want and where we're going with it. And then Austin has really good ideas and really great suggestions where we can go musically as well. So yeah, we're really excited about what's to come, and what we have in store. There's only but so much that we can let out little by little, but I honestly can't wait until we release at least the first single, whenever that may be.
Right. That's something I've been noticing a lot. Like, a lot of guys, like, they'll probably use like bass tracks or something like for the live show and not even get a bass player, which is, I mean, it's crazy for me to think about. I started off playing bass. I mean, even though in the band I'm in, I'm just focusing on singing, but like,
right.
I almost feel like telling like young kids who want to be in a band, almost like my advice would be like, learn how to play bass, because it's like it's hard to find good bass players. It's like, if you're a solid bass player, you're gonna get work.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, like, it was sad letting Jeff go. He's a phenomenal bass player. His first instrument's guitar. But we asked him if he could join us on bass, and we heard him play, and he was super awesome at it. So, he had, he could write guitar licks as well as like bass stuff. But a lot of our stuff, like the newer stuff, it's not really technical. It's not really as technical. It's more of groove bass now. Very, very punchy, heavy, groove bass, bouncy, to add more in there, but yeah, a lot of the stuff is just it's more free flowing now. It's a little more groovy than our first EP was. There's a little more technical stuff going on in there, but honestly, I would prefer to have like you know, that fourth member, a bass player in it. But
to have that human element, you know.
Yeah, I'm always a big fan of just having flaws in the music, and I like, you know, hearing mistakes in live shows and you know, a real band perform.
That's half the fun of it. I mean, not necessarily that you want people being like sloppy on stage, but it's like, you know, you get that extra, you know, X factor, that right. Like I said, that human element, that where it's like maybe it might not sound exactly the way it does on the record, but like it might have something in there that you like even better, or you know, or enjoy. Just add that extra little piece of energy into it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, but unfortunately, like we're in a day and age where I honestly don't know how to explain it, but I know it's whether we have the members or not, we're still gonna do it, and
yeah, of course,
we're still gonna keep moving.
The technology allows you to do that, which is good.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not a bad thing.
There are famous bands out there that are just two members and then they run the rest on tracks. I mean, even pop stars, they'll have the full band on tracks and it's just them on stage, you know, and it's like, well, if they can get away with it, why can't rock bands do it as well? Like, do we really have to settle to wait till the next member comes along that decides that your project is worth a damn and they have to take it seriously? Like, honestly, I've been nearly a decade trying to make the full band thing work, and it's just blown up in my face because you come across certain musicians that think nothing but of themselves, and you know, like, and this is not what happened recently, mind you, you know, we're on terms with Jeff, everything. But throughout the years, I've had to learn, like, either I was in someone else's project and I had to deal with their vision, and that's awesome. I've always gave it like 120%, and then things would happen where they were either give up and then I'm left stranded. Now I have to find my own band. So when I finally decided to start my own, you know, there were always like these loose ends where they just want to join just to ride to ride that wave or to take advantage that it's going somewhere, and they just kind of do their own thing or really weren't putting in the effort to practice, or, you know, it could be so many factors. So I've decided, you know what, if so-and-so can do it, or X, Y, and Z bands can do it, and they're called a rock band and it's just 2 guys, 3 guys, like, why can't I do the same? You know, if it ends up just being Sean and I, believe you me, we're going to hit the stage and still, you know, blow the roof off the place, you know, if you know, time and effort allows. But we're set out, we're determined, you know, whether, you know, we lose or gain members from here on out, you know, we're still going to keep going, still going to keep doing it.
Yeah. There was a band I saw down here. They're from like somewhere out in the Midwest. They were called I Exist, and it was really just 2 guys on stage. But they managed to, you know, I mean, they use a lot of tracks and media and stuff like that. But they were just an incredible, you know, really like progressive band, and they were able to do it, and it sounded really good, even if it was just 2 guys plus the technology and everything. And now, obviously, the purist musician in me was, you know, wants me to see like more guys on stage and everything. But at the same time, you know, when it comes to dealing with members and people coming in and out, I totally see where you're coming from. Like, it's not an easy thing. How many bands do you know that stay together with all the original members over a long time? It's not easy.
Right.
Like, even if, you know, you're dealing with the best player in the world, if the guy's a jerk, you don't want him on your tour bus. And you know, you have to have like the personal dynamics in there as well. It's all about finding the right people. You know, sometimes it's not even about finding the best players, it's about finding the right players. And it's really difficult to find that sometimes. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I get it. You know, it's like, it was either like we found the right person that we mesh with, but do we really have the time to wait around till this person picks himself up and works on their craft? You know, like, we've had to deal with people that were just about the image, but then they really sucked at the guitar or the bass. It's
Yeah.
like, and we didn't see an effort, like they were either going out too much and not really practicing on their own. Like, and honestly, like I can be thrown any excuse in the world. There's no excuse. I've worked with some of the most talented musicians out there, like if not some of the best. Like these dudes will work 5, 6, 7 days a week rehearsing with their band. You know what it is to rehearse with your band 6 days a week for 8 hours a day? That's how serious it is. And it's like, and I have to deal with people complaining about like, well, I worked today and I'm tired. And I'm like, no way, get out. I'm sorry. We're going to have to move on without you, because there's really no excuse. I've met people that work 2 jobs and still rehearse with their touring band. I've worked with touring bands that as soon as they're done touring, they go home and work. And as soon as they're done working, they have rehearsals like every day. Doesn't matter if they have a tour that's 3 months out or a week out. These people are practicing their butts off. And, forgive me out there if you're listening, I'm giving away your trade secrets, but honestly, this is something that needs to be said, because I see this in the local scene like too much. It's like, oh, well, I got to see when I can do it, and I can do it this day. And it's like, I've produced bands that give me the same excuse and the same complaint, like, well, we have to figure out when our bass player or keyboard player or singer can do it, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, you should probably find a singer that's going to, or a person that's going to. There's too much of wanting to walk on eggshells because certain person is your bro or your sis or you've known them for years. I'm like, honestly, where I've come from and the dirt that I had to deal with, like while being on tour and watching all those people deal with the BS that they had to go through to even stay as a touring band is insane. It's like you hear all these stories and people take sides when they don't even know the reality of what it takes. Honestly, it's like, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing on how much those bands out there that are signed, that are out there touring, how much shit they have to take, and to even stay relevant. So, dealing with so many musicians in and out in town locally, whatever excuse is given to me, it's like, I honestly, I wish I could sympathize, but I can't, because I know how much effort it takes and how much certain people are giving. And in comparison, it's like, you want to say like, hey, you want to give all these excuses, but you're not even compared to like what all those other bands are doing. It could be like the cheesiest band, but if they're out there touring, it means that they're shedding blood, sweat, and tears just to be out there in the first place. So it's a tough game, man.
For sure, man. I think a lot of that comes down to consistency as well.
Right.
Like, and again, not to point to my own band again, but I know like we usually only get together maybe about once a week, right. which I know is nothing, compared to what these bigger bands are doing. But it's like, we try to do that, and a lot of us, I know for me, like I'm driving like an hour and a half each way.
Right.
And not to try and like, put myself up there or anything, but it's just like stuff like that. It helps to have guys that are at least reliable. And at least people who are not going to flake out. That, I think, is half the problem. Like, guys who are going to call or text you back. If you want them to be somewhere, they're going to be somewhere. And
right.
Even if stuff comes up, at least they let you know beforehand, and all that sort of thing. I think that's just a general, just good rule of life to be in, let alone if you're in a band.
Yeah, that's really true, man. It's like, like I said, it wasn't really like point figures or knocking or anything, but it should serve as like a motivational tool or something, knowing about this, to be like, to help you get off your butt and be like, you know what? If they're out there and I'm wondering and complaining why my band hasn't hit it big yet, or why isn't it at least building the momentum, like maybe maybe they're right. I gotta kind of, you kind of have to beat yourself up a bit, not to the point where you're you're like feeling sorry for yourself, but like to, like, hey, you can do this. Like if they can do it and you don't believe in their music so much and they're popular and you want to make your own band popular because you believe in your own music, then damn it, get up and do it. Like
Right.
if you have to deal with someone that's like, well, I can't make it today. Okay, awesome. You best believe I'm going to start making some calls to hit up some people that's going to do it. Like I don't sympathize with anyone, honestly, except maybe with Sean and Austin. But, anyone else that's come into the picture, if they're like throwing excuses, I'm going to throw numbers at them, like basically saying like, cool, I'm going to find somebody that's going to want to do this. Like, I'm sorry, like we'll work with you now, but like you keep up this kind of, this kind of work ethic, we're going to have to find someone else. Like, and I have to be straight with them like that. I can't, like being in a band is not like how it was before in the 80s and the 90s. Like, oh, it's just off. We were friends since high school and we've had this band since so many years. Like, it's not how it is anymore. Like, technology has helped us to where we can develop and arrange our own songs, our own music to where we really don't need anyone, but it's, unless they're like a key component to the songwriting aspect. And I feel like I have that with Sean and, and Austin now. And it should motivate others. I see this all the time in the DJ world, and it's probably why, the DJ and the whole EDM thing came about. It was probably because frustrated musicians were probably sick and tired of trying to figure out who they could jam with or they could collab with. And then they got tired of waiting and they saw a tool, a computer that could help them create the music that they hear in their head and just perform it live. Pick up a microphone, press play on your laptop, and have all this awesome songs you've probably been working on for almost over a year, and just perform your heart out and perform, and share the music with the world. I appreciate solo artists so much for that, and even like the duos like 21 Pilots, Royal Blood, like they started out full bands, and I guarantee if you sit and talk to them, it probably veered off to just a 2-man group or even a one person show because they couldn't find band members that believed in their project well enough to stay.
Right.
So they just kept going, and kudos to them that just keep going strong where it's down to 2 members. 21 Pilots started as a 5 person group. And then it dwindled down to where it ended up 3 and then 2 and then and now they're
crazy.
It's 2.
It's crazy to think about. Switching gears a little bit, if you could maybe tell us a little bit about your backstory, because obviously, like I mentioned in the intro, that you're an Army veteran. You served there for a few years, and then you've gone on to do all this stuff, like work with touring bands thing. Take us back to when you first started to get into music. Was it something that you were always into when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Since I could remember, I guess since like 6, 7 years old, my mom would watch, both my mom and my stepdad, and, they would watch like Elvis Presley and Guns N' Roses, and I was always into that, and watching Prince as a kid. I've always wanted to be a performer. I liked singing. My mom would tell me I would walk around and just sing songs that I would randomly come up with.
Nice.
And then, I didn't really get my first, like, my own instrument, since I was like maybe like 14 years old. But I would sneak into my dad's room and try to play his acoustic guitar. And, until he finally saw, and then he would just teach me chords here and there. And then, let's see, it progressed from there, and I joined the marching band on drums. I learned how to play the drums, for a few years as a kid. I was maybe like 15, 16 years old, joined a band when I was like 17. I was, really big into like punk bands and stuff I could sing and play to. I started singing and playing guitar since I was a kid, mostly because of like punk rock bands and stuff that I used to like.
Are you originally from the Orlando area? Did you grow up in Central Florida?
No. I was born in New York.
Okay.
And then, I was raised in Puerto Rico since I was like 9 years old. Stayed there ever since. Then I joined the military from there, and I've been living in the States ever since.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, So, your military career, did you join that like right out of high school or?
No, honestly, I was like 23 or 24 when I joined, and that was it was quite a few years ago. I'm 32 now, so it is quite a bit ago. I was in for like 5 years, and yeah, it was I was in the Army. I started out as infantry and then moved up to, I decided to change, cause I had initially joined the reserves as infantry, and then I changed my job to, dental specialist, and then, went to Texas from there and did the whole dental school thing, and it was amazing. I got to work at, some really cool hospitals, and then I moved up to, oral surgery tech, where I was in the OR like all day and just, just doing all that fun stuff. And then, I suffered some injuries while I was in, and I had to be released. And so at the time I was married to my kid's mother, and she wanted to move to Florida. She did not want to move back to Puerto Rico. So we moved to Florida. My parents were already here, living in Kissimmee. So we found a place in Orlando. We've been here ever since 2012, since I've been out. And, I decided to focus on music while I was in the military. And most of my coworkers there and at the hospital, they thought I was crazy. They're just like, "Oh, are you going to get out? What are you going to do?" Like, I was like, well, I had no choice, but at the same time, I was still like performing in bands and everything while I was stationed up in Georgia. I was in a band where we got to open for Nonpoint and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really fun. That I was in a band called Eye of Abram. Really cool guys from Georgia. They're such humble dudes. I really love working with them. It was my first experience at a real professional recording studio. We had like this whole road trip planned to go at a recording studio up in South Carolina. And, it was really fun working with them. And then we released the EP, and then we started getting picked up for all these shows, and, we were opening for some really fun bands. I think, if I remember, it was Within Reason. They're really popular, like in the Southeast.
Okay.
And, we did that show at Nonpoint, Straight Line Stitch. I don't know if you remember that band, female fronted, like hardcore band. It's pretty awesome.
Sounds familiar, but that's really cool. Because I always imagine like being in the Army or any branch of the service, like you're probably so busy, because you're doing that all the time. I always figured like that must have been next to impossible to get like to be in bands while you're doing that and while you're serving and all that stuff.
Yeah, honestly, it was. And looking back on it, I did sacrifice a lot of family time, by doing that. But luckily, at the time, I had a good support system, and it was known that I needed some kind of creative outlet, and it was either that or just doing music. I would even perform like solos and stuff like that, or even like acoustic sets for our unit when they would have these events, and they're like, we need some kind of music or something, and I would volunteer like, hey, I could play whatever, and they didn't think I could until I actually performed and show them that I could, because it's a whole different world, in the military. It's like you don't get too many people that have like with some kind of artistry or performance. And when you do, it's like a rarity for them, so it's
right.
like it's pretty awesome for them. I thought it was pretty cool that looking back on this, I did juggle a lot by being in the Army and then finding time afterwards to be in a band and perform shows even.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really cool though. Were you ever like called over to like Iraq or Afghanistan at any point?
Wow, it's I volunteered twice and the orders were pulled. So, I tried, but the unit I was staying at was a garrison unit, which means basically that I'm needed like stateside because we were at a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my job as a oral surgery tech, like I was needed mostly stateside. Some of my friends did, like once their year or 2 year cycle was up for that unit, they were to move to a field unit. My next station was going to be a field unit somewhere out in Korea. But then, due to my injuries and such, I was not allowed to re-enlist. So I had to find like some kind of outlet or a new career, like fast.
Right. Once you were discharged.
Right. Cause I already knew like a year or 2 years in that, because of the injuries that I was not going to be able to like re-enlist. So, what I did was, I just started working on my craft and just practicing like almost every day and joined bands and I planned, like when I get out, I'm just going to pursue music. This is what I'm going to do. I made plans to either go to Musicians Institute. I got accepted to MI.
Wow.
It was really hard to convince, the kids' mom to, move out there to California.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, the area that I had to live, like I was looking to live at was not really kid friendly and I wanted to raise my family right. I wanted my kids to be able to play outside and I wasn't too fond of the world out there in Los Angeles. I still am not, like I'd take hurricanes and storms over fires and earthquake any day. So
yeah,
like it's a totally different vibe. It's beautiful out there, and I decided, I'll just stay here. I discovered Full Sail, and it just opened a whole new world for me because, at first I was all about the performance and the musicianship, and I didn't realize there's just so much behind the scenes, like in the production world, like creating the record itself to making the band sound like what they do in the first place, Like,
oh, for sure, man. Like and I've said this a bunch of times, but like I'm completely clueless when it comes to like production and like audio engineering and stuff like that. So I'm always like really like envious and I always admire guys who are really good at that sort of thing. It's like I said, it's a skill that I wish I had, but it's really it's a very important part of the process.
Yeah, it definitely, you train your ears definitely, like once you get into it, it's definitely, it's very techy, it's, very scientific behind the whole thing, it's like
it's like learning another instrument, really.
Yeah, basically that's exactly what it is. So I honestly see it as like video games, I gave up video games just so I could focus more on like production and just songwriting. Because it's exactly what it feels like. You open up a session in Pro Tools and you have to figure it out. Like if you turn on a new video game or if you've never played PlayStation, you've always been an Xbox person, you get a new PlayStation with a brand new video game that's unique to that system, you have to figure out all the ins and outs. And so that's what I view as like audio production is like you come across a new console to mix for a live concert and you got to study how the room behaves and how frequencies react like with different systems and how are you going to use that to your advantage to make it sound pleasing. So it's definitely something I've, been proud to have, accomplished. I love what deciding that, I'm going to go to Full Sail. I'm going to figure this out because at first I was trying to like write songs and I was kind of learning with like GarageBand and I wanted to get really into it. So, I came across like information for Full Sail and I decided to just jump right in.
Gotcha. And that's what you're doing now for your day job. You have your own studio at this point?
Yeah, I co-own a studio with Barton Hill and Josh Saldate. They're really well known in the music industry. Barton, he's toured with the Lax. He's written music that's hit Billboard charts, and Josh produced several reggae bands. They've gotten signed. They're charting on Billboard. It's really amazing how it came about because it initially started Bart and I talking about opening a studio, but then he was on tour, and then when he got off tour, I started touring. thanks to him, I got that phone call from a buddy of mine. Hey, do you want to join us as our sound guy? We saw that you're going to Full Sail, blah, blah. And I put school on hold to say yeah. And then I called Barton. He's like, yeah, dude, it's just do it. You trust me. It's nothing hard. You just go out there and just learn as you go as well. Cause every board out there at every venue is going to be different. So there's no use at trying to wait till you know everything at school, cause you're going to learn it out there. So I did. I followed his advice, and then here I am, sort of build, my skill set, and, now I'm the main guy for P.O.D. and, I tour manage.
Yeah. I was going to get into that. I know, the name of your studio is the Tone Distillery.
Right.
And that, going through sort of your resume here, like you've worked with a lot of touring bands, like a Storm, From Ashes to New, Devil and currently with one of my all-time favorite bands, P.O.D. And some people are a little surprised to hear that, because normally I don't go for like sort of the rap rock bands quite as much, but like P.O.D. is a band that I've listened to for years and really admired, and even just the last couple of days I've just been kind of on a little bit of a P.O.D. kick, just like going around and revisiting some of their songs that I haven't heard in a while, and just like remembering like, oh yeah, they got some really good stuff. Like I don't always understand some of the reggae lyrics, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, man. I was honestly, like, when I toured with them before, I was with From Ashes to New, and they were the baby band on tour. And, I was shocked to get that phone call from Marcos, their guitar player.
Yeah.
Like almost 2 years later, he's like, we need a sound guy. I want you to come up and all this stuff. So, and then mixing their sound, it's like, it's felt surreal, because there's a lot of this music that I used to listen to as a kid, when I was like 16 years old. And then watching them perform it live, even then I was like, holy crap, these dudes bring it way harder than most, even like the hardest metal band you could think of. Like, they've probably gotten some crap talked about them throughout the years, but I don't think any of those people have seen them at a show. And if they have, like, they're probably calling it a bad night, but honestly, I don't think those guys have ever had a bad night. Even, not while I was touring with them, like they seem to, have it down like every night, no tracks, just them, bare bones. And they brought it, and they still bring it, and I'm excited to be working with such an awesome band like that.
For sure, man. Those guys, I mean, those guys are road-tested veterans, man. Almost like over 20 years they've been in the game. And I've always gotten the impression that they seem like really super nice guys.
They're nice, man, and it's not a facade. It's not a front. They're honestly like genuine, honest dudes that they just work hard, and they love what they do, and they love their fans. They love the people they work with. They're super nice to anyone they meet, and very respectful dudes.
And they've really managed to carve out a unique sound for themselves. Like, really, hardly anyone else can really claim to sound like them. The way they've been able to blend rap and rock and reggae. There aren't a lot of bands that sound like P.O.D.
Right. No, I don't think there's anyone that does, honestly. Like, Marcos has his tone, and I think that sets him apart. And then he's very old school about it. Like, I've even tried talking him and say, hey, you should get a Kemper, and you can downsize on the weight. He's like, look, man, I got my tone, and this is what I am. Honestly, and he's right, man. Like, his tone is unmatchable. His guitar tone is great. I freaking love his tone. And then you have Trey on bass, and his bass tone is just wildly phenomenal. I tell him every night, like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it, because it sounds amazing out there. It's like, it's his playing style. All their playing style is just so unique. It's really good to have such a hard hitting band out there still doing it, and I'm actually excited for their newer stuff. I can't hear much about, but yeah, I'm excited to be working with such great musicians.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. I mean, so many things about that band. I know their satellite record. I remember that was released on September 11th, 2001, and
right.
Just, I mean, talk about just crazy timing, but like, when you have like songs like Alive and Youth of the Nation that have sort of, messages of hope
Right.
in there. I mean, talk about songs that couldn't have come at like a more perfect time. As sad as that is to say, but I mean, I feel like songs like Alive kind of helped a portion of the population to heal a little bit from
Right.
when 9/11 came out. And I'm actually, it's cool that you mentioned Marcos. I'm wondering if they ever play any of the songs from when Jason was in the band, Jason Truby.
Actually, it's funny because I joke around with Sonny a lot about it. I'm like, you should play that one song you had in the Matrix, and they joke
Sleeping
around.
Awake. I love that tune.
And that's the song, and that's so, yeah, you never know. So hopefully, if we come through town on the In This Moment tour that we're doing, yeah, hopefully they get to play some of those other songs too.
Yeah, I mean, I know they had some pretty. They had a few hits from the time when Marcos wasn't in the band, but I could see how that might be a little weird, like having him going back to play some other dude's parts. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it is what it is. Honestly, it's like it's it's music. It's fun. But hopefully those
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they have enough hits where like they don't really need to do that necessarily.
Yeah, their set lists are pretty long. So they're a headlining act, so they have to put together like an hour and a half of music. So you'd be surprised like how many of those hits were on there, until you work with them every day.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, so you got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, you got the Devil's Envy is definitely coming around, definitely starting to build a little bit of momentum. You've got the Tone Distillery, you've got all these other gigs you're working on, these touring soundman gigs, I should say.
Right.
So when's the next Devil's Envy show?
So we have a headliner show, December 29th. That's a Friday, I believe, at the Haven at Winter Park. And we'll be sharing the stage with some good friends of ours in No Politics and Valiant Effort. And we have Not in Vain is an up-and-coming, a newer band that I kind of discovered, and I, sought them out. And I saw they had some potential, as well as there's Not in Vain and Poor Advice. Yeah, those two bands I kind of discovered, and they were really eager to play the show with us. I'm actually looking forward to seeing No Politics. I know I've been following them for a little bit, and their singer Regis is a really good friend. He and I chat sometimes on Facebook every now and then.
Very cool, man. So that's cool. Yeah. Got a brand new Devil's Envy show coming up. Got the comic book. Got a lot of stuff going on. Now, for those who haven't gotten the chance to listen to your music, how would you sort of describe the sound of the band, the sound of Devil's Envy?
It's pretty crazy. There's I mean, if you listen to it at first, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of raw. Our first EP was, I had to use the best of what we had. We had to be resourceful. We didn't have all this money to put together an EP. We didn't have all the time in the world. We just had the ideas. We just had to put it out. But it's very eclectic. It's crazy. It can be angry, and it's hopefully any new listeners out there, when they hear it, they could find some kind of, they could relate to it in some way. Hopefully.
Absolutely. I would say it's definitely sort of a cross between like metalcore and mainstream hard rock as well. Would that be right. Be a fair description?
Yeah, that's good. And I'm honestly excited, without giving too much of like what genre we sound like, but for the next EP or so, our next releases are going to be a little different than what you heard, but still remaining true to our original vibe. It's going to keep developing, keep progressing, but yeah, this one has definitely a little more of a electronic vibe to it, if you will. But yeah, it's I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about our new music and what we have to offer later on. Hopefully by next year, we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, because like it definitely has those screams and the heavy parts in there, but it has some clean vocals in there, and you're a pretty good singer, man.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's tough. I hate hearing the sound of my own voice.
Nobody likes hearing their own voice.
But this is a very good record. You know, I have Josh and Barton co-producing on it, and we're doing it all ourselves essentially, while using, we're at the Tone Distillery. I have really good producers like Josh and Barton on board, as well as our Sean and Austin. And I'm honestly excited. I'm trying to do like a little plug here for the Tone Distillery, but yeah, it's like what we had sought out first for Tone Distillery, was to help each other with our artistry, because, also Josh and Barton are also performers as well. Josh is an amazing producer. He does, EDM from reggae, and he's also a singer, and so is Barton. You might know him from Maybe If You Hit It or My High. And we're also working on their new stuff, which is awesome. The three of us have something going while using our facilities to its fullest potential.
That sounds good. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the world of Angel Graves. I like it. So where can people find Devil's Envy online? Where's their social media located?
I think what people want to hear first, like you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple Music, Google Play, just search Devil's Envy, no apostrophe.
Right, it's plural, it's not possessive.
Right. Let's see, you can find us on our personal webpage, devilsenvy.bandcamp.com. There you can purchase tickets to our concerts. You can also sign up to be a patron on patreon.com/devilsenvy. There you can catch behind the scenes footage, or even like sneak peeks of up and coming music, artwork, sketches. We even have old demos of our old songs on there as well. Stuff that we wrote while Zach was in the band, all that good stuff. Photos of us at the studio. It's definitely a good thing to look into. It helps support us and keep us moving forward. Let's see where else you could find us. Facebook, obviously, facebook.com/devilsenvymusic. You can find us on Twitter, which is at Devil's Envy Music. Also Instagram, which is our we get most responses on there is Instagram. We like to post more photos than anything. But yeah, it's at Devil's Envy. Pretty simple.
Sounds good. And Tone Distillery, where can people find out info about that?
Yeah, Tone Distillery, you can check tone-distillery.com, or you could check on Facebook. Just search Tone Distillery. You'll see the blue TD logo, and it should put you in the right direction. But yeah, we're not mainly a recording studio, which is one of our biggest things that we do. Let's see, our main goal there at Tone Distillery is to even help. We find artists that we see have good potential, and we also develop them. We don't offer to shop them, even though we can, but we just offer to just develop them as an artist. We focus a lot on songwriting. But then, if they do want to cut a record with us, or an EP or a single, we can tie that in as well. We're really excited to meet new people out there and new artists. If you have an idea, feel free to hit us up there at tone-distillery.com, or on Facebook, or you can contact myself or Barton Hill or Josh Saldate, and we'd be more than happy to help anyone that has any questions or would like to come visit the studio for a bit.
Sounds good, man. Angel, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining me, and definitely best of luck to you in Devil's Envy and with Tone Distillery and everything else you got going on.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much to Angel Graves of Devil's Envy. Really great guy, really talented band. They have a big show coming up on December 29th at the Haven. There are a few special guests that will be involved, including No Politics, A Valiant Effort, Not in Vain, and Poor Advice. Tickets are on sale now. I believe they have a link to advanced tickets on their Facebook page and all their social media. Really interesting talk, hearing about what this guy has done, working with some big bands, including P.O.D. as a traveling tour manager and sound tech and everything he's doing with the Tone Distillery, and even some of his approach to putting together Devil's Envy. It's interesting what he said about not even having a permanent bass player, which is weird. Like, if you listen to the last episode I did with Chris and Lenny of Disaster Piece, that seems to be like a recurring thing I keep finding with bands, or where it's like they don't necessarily have like a permanent lineup of guys, or at least don't have a permanent bass player for some reason. I don't know why it's so difficult to get someone to stay in that position. Even in general, getting people to stay in bands. It's obviously Angel has really taken a big control of this project, along with he said Sean, his drummer, and now with Austin on guitar. So I'm not sure what that means for the future of Devil's Envy, is if they're going to get a permanent guy or if they're just using people on like a part-time basis. All I can say to that is I am very glad to be in a band where there are 5 of us, including myself, and I am very glad that as far as I can tell, nobody is going anywhere. Nobody is having any commitment issues. As far as I know, nobody wants to leave. I am so grateful to have Rod and Ryan and Greg and Jarrett in my band. I can't tell you how much I appreciate those guys, and how much and how crucial their chemistry is to this whole thing. So, not that I'm trying to make this about my band, I'm just trying to say how grateful I am to be in the situation I'm in, and that it's not necessarily that way with everybody else. But, not to say that Angel and his guys aren't finding a way to make it work. Not to say that Chris and Lenny aren't finding a way to make their band work. Like I said, every band is different. Every group has different dynamics, and there's no one way to do this. So, with that being said, I wish the guys in Devil's Envy the best of luck. I'm looking forward to their show on December 29th, and I wish them nothing but continued success. They're definitely trying to make a big splash here in the Orlando area, so I think they have all the right tools to do it. As far as some upcoming events for me, I know the band is kind of taking this month off. It's the holidays. We're spending it with our families. Hope that wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this, however you're listening to this, that you're enjoying your holiday season. I know that the next gig I have is an acoustic show on Saturday, February 10th. At Winfields and Satellite Beach. Again, it will be myself, Justin Weir of 21 to Burn, Dominic St. Charles of Earn, and we will be opening for John Corabi, the former lead singer of Motley Crue, former guitarist of Rat, and now currently the singer of the Dead Daisies. John Corabi is a well-respected veteran, one of the best singers in the world. He's just a really fantastic musician, so it's a real treat for me to open for him. So that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you like me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor. Facebook.com/JackConnorMusic is where you can find me there. Feel free to check out my band, Vertebreaker, at Facebook.com/VertebreakerBand. Again, I'll have all the links here in the description. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. If you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, go back and listen to all the other episodes. Got a lot of really great stuff on here, including these one-on-one interviews, including we also have movie reviews, pro wrestling, even random commentaries on like old episode of like Power Rangers and stuff like that. Just whatever me and my friends feel like talking about, whatever makes us laugh and have a good time. And we just like to cover a lot of topics here. So thank you for listening. This has been the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.